So, our next guest we've got on by popular demand, haven't we?
People have been asking.
Well, yeah, been asking for.
They have. Straight up.
They have.
Yeah, who would be like? We
asked,
put it out there, didn't we?
Yeah, we put it out there, and Kevin Moran, thank you for coming on. Very privileged. How are you? You good?
Yeah, I'm great. I can't complain. All good. Touch wood. Health is very good. Family's all well. Can't ask for any more than that.
Nice. What are you doing to keep healthy? Sporting or?
Yeah, I enjoy my sport. I play golf. I'm a big golf fan. I play golf as often as I can. And tennis is the other one I like to play. Did a bit of paddle.
You've got on the paddle craze.
Yeah, not so bad. When I came out first, I was doing a lot of the paddle, and then I kind of dropped off a little bit. And now I prefer the tennis to the paddle, really. You know, we kind of play that on a regular basis.
We haven't tried paddle, have we?
No, but I think that might be more us because tennis is too hard. Yeah.
You just hear of a lot of injuries now with the paddle. There's a lot of people I know that have had Achilles problems, and it's sharpness that you do it on. Whereas tennis, when we play tennis, it's usually singles we like to play, so it's a little bit more of putting a lot of work into it than more than anything else.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, we're going to go through your amazing career in a number of sports, but just before we do, what are you up to these days apart from playing sport? Are you fully retired now?
I would have to say I'm fully retired. There's a couple of properties I might manage and that, but that's small really. But no, overall, as regards what I was doing in the past on the agency business, I'm completely retired from that. So I've gone past the 70 mark. So from that point of view, I can relax and retire.
Duties, yeah.
Full time. Are you well happy with that? You're not missing any of the...
Yeah, no. I still have a couple of season tickets that I go to Old Trafford whenever I can with my son. And so I enjoy doing that, just go to the games. I don't want to do anything else there, just to watch the games and come back home.
Perfect. So let's go kind of back from the start. So born in Dublin.
Yeah.
Part of quite a big family.
Yeah, I was one of 8, 5 brothers, 2 sisters. Came from the Rialto area in Dublin, and then we moved from there out to Walkinstown. Went to James's Street School at the beginning, and then on to Drimnagh Castle, where I played Gaelic football there, which was the norm, which you did in Christian Brothers schools.
So it wasn't football to start with, was it? Yeah, it was Gaelic.
No, it was Gaelic football all the way through. I only started playing soccer, as we say, rather than football, as you mentioned there. Started playing soccer on a competitive level at under 14.
Yeah, that's quite late, really.
So it was kind of quite late. And that was with a club team called Rangers up in Bushy Park. And that was because I had a couple of friends that I went to school with in Drimnagh Castle, and they were playing there. It was with Colm Hale.
So when you started playing football then at 14, you would have still been playing the Gaelic football.
Yeah. So
from a sort of training and playing games, how did you fit that in? Could you do both?
You could do both. I can remember going back in those days when I was about 14, 15, 16. I had a pair of boots on every single day of the week. If I wasn't training with the school team, I was training 2 days a week with the soccer team, Rangers, and we had a really good soccer team as well. So all of a sudden there was just games all the time, because when you played there, you played under 15 for the school, you played under 17 for the school. So there's 2 teams you're playing for there, and also playing the soccer then as well. So it was full time.
What did you prefer, Kevin? Did you prefer?
Interesting one that, because back then you just played both games, and I wouldn't say I had much of a preference which one I preferred, but I was a much more natural Gaelic footballer than I was a soccer player. The Gaelic football came much easier to me than soccer.
And that's probably why you were so brave when you started playing soccer, because you different bashes and that.
Different clashes, but it wasn't. It's a physical game, Gaelic football, but it's not a dirty game. You know what I mean? In terms of that, it's physicality, all right. And you need a fair bit of stamina in it as well. It's a big pitch to play on. So it certainly gave me a huge advantage, so when I came over to United. But what also gave me a huge advantage coming over was the fact that I came over quite late. You know what I mean? I wasn't like, most people come over at 16 or something like that, and it's harder then.
Was there any hurling or anything in the mix?
I played hurling as well.
Did you?
Yeah, I played hurling. Was great.
Did them all?
I did them all. Hurling was fantastic. I loved hurling. To me, it's the best game of all. It's a fantastic game.
And it really is.
I watched a game of that and it was lethal,
Yeah, so obviously you said around 14 you started playing football. What was the introduction to football? Is that because your mates were playing it? How did you get introduced to football and then become...
It's a good story that I have, because I was playing, at the weekend I was playing club football, Gaelic football for the team.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I went, and that was with good counsel. And then I went and played with Dublin and Gaelic, their club team. And by right, I shouldn't have done that because I didn't get a proper transfer over. And they put in an objection. And as a result, I got banned for playing for a year. And because of that, I went and started playing soccer.
All right. Okay.
And then I had a friend, as I said, Colin Hale from Dublin and Gaelic. He said, why don't you come up and, see what Rangers is like up in Bushy Park. And so I went up there, and I always wanted to try and play anyway. So now this was the perfect opportunity. So in many ways, that's, if that hadn't have happened, I don't know whether I would have played it.
Wow.
So it's a bit of fate, really, for Ireland
for
United,
sure,
etc.
Yeah, very true.
But you did then get to play at real, great level in Gaelic football, didn't you?
At the Gaelic football I did, yes. But it's ironic because when I was concentrating on Gaelic football, soccer came into the equation. Then when I was concentrating on soccer, the Gaelic football came in.
Always a decision to make.
It was a lot of decision-making done at the time. Because later on, when I finished school, I was playing mainly the soccer because then the Gaelic football finished with school. So we were playing with Rangers. Now, on that Rangers team there was two great players, Jerry Ryan, who came over here and played, and Pat Bourne, who also played with Leicester City when he came over as well. So they were two players that came with me. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was ironic, it was a good story here. I know I'm jumping a little bit, but, I sat in the same classroom with Jerry Ryan and we sat together, and this was in 1973 when we were doing the Leaving Cert, which is the equivalent of A-levels.
Yeah.
And if somebody had said to us, exactly 10 years' time, you will play against each other in an FA Cup final.
Wow.
So you've been playing for Brighton then, would he?
He was playing for Brighton then.
No
so
way.
That was in 83.
When you we are jumping ahead, but when you were walking out, do you remember meeting him and speaking to each other on the pitch and stuff?
Kind of. We didn't make too much of a fuss meeting up with each other to talk about that as such, because we would have played against each other anyway before in a league game, because they were in the old first division, as they called it then. So no, it wasn't a big deal about it at the time. We just
it's nice
got
to
on with
look
it.
back on, though, isn't it?
But when you
That's
look back
crazy,
on it, you've nearly forgotten about it. But when you look back on it, you think, crikey, what a coincidence.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Just before we kind of get onto the football, so just obviously you played in two big Gaelic football finals, the All Ireland, three, you won two. Yeah, the levels for that. And you got an All-Star.
Yeah, I got an All-Star in 76, yeah.
And for the people that don't know that sport, is that the best person in that position throughout the championships? Or
every year it's still ongoing now in both hurling and football. Journalists pick what they would consider would be the best team of the year, So in 1976, I picked up the All-Star for the position I played in, centre-back. Yeah.
And they're big occasions then. They're still massive, aren't they? It's like the NFL.
Yeah, the games are fantastic. I just watched games over this weekend now as well, like quarterfinals of the All-Ireland Championship. And the rules have changed a little bit now. And the football that's been played at the moment was fantastic in all four games. Do
you still have any do you go and watch the games? Do you get invited to any historic ceremonies, because like you would do for United, for example? Yeah, funny enough, I've just come back this weekend from celebrating 50 years since we won the All-Ireland in 1976 against Kerry, and we all went down, the Dublin team went down to Kerry to celebrate it, and we mixed with those players down there. We played golf with them and had a dinner with them and an evening with them. So it was great fun. So the Dublin team I'm a part of, it's a very close group that keep together and stay in touch. So there's much more of a closeness there than there would ever be, even with United or Ireland or anybody. They're such a close group. It's amazing. Sorry, go on, mate.
I was going to say, am I right in thinking there wasn't much money playing Gaelic?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
No, you're wrong there. There was no money.
Oh, right.
There wasn't not much money.
So would you have had to work as well then?
Oh, yeah.
What would you have done then?
When I was playing accountancy, I was doing accountancy with Oliver Freely. Right. So I'd done a year doing accountancy. So that was the route I was going down before coming over to United.
Right.
So the game is totally amateur and still is today.
Oh, right.
Still is today. And, the work and effort these guys put in is...
For sure,
you've got no idea. And the fitness level is just frightening.
Yeah.
Do they get some form of payment? Because I know the crowds are so big. Where does that ticket money go then?
The ticket money all goes back into the GAA itself.
Right.
And the GAA then goes throughout the small communities all over Ireland, and they make better facilities and small little clubs down there. So it's a brilliant situation, you know what I mean, whereby everybody benefits from it, you know, and as a result of that, there's a great community spirit with people following, you know, the Gaelic games.
I love it, yeah.
It's really great.
Yeah.
And it's fair play to the players. They don't look for it, they don't want it. They do get, maybe at the end of the season, they might get a trip abroad or something like that if they've been successful, or, you know, the county board might grant that to them.
Yeah.
But in general, it's an amateur sport where all the money goes back into the game again.
Kind of, that doesn't exist a lot anymore, does it,
No, it
really,
doesn't,
in sport, and it's pretty remarkable. But if we kind of now talk about how you started coming away slightly from playing at a good level in Gaelic football, who were you playing at when United started looking at you? And can you tell us about that experience, how you heard, who it was, etc.?
Well, as I said to you before, I was playing with Rangers schoolboy team, and that finished up to about under 18.
Yeah.
And then I went from Rangers. Now, at this time, I've just started college at UCD. Then I went from Rangers to Bohemians.
Yeah,
so Bohemians were a good League of Ireland team then as well. And I quite enjoyed playing it there. Now, at this stage, I'm not playing any Gaelic football. So then I go from Bohemians. I decided in my last year in UCD, I've got to know a few of the players. So I thought, well, it'd be nice to play with them in the final year. So then I joined UCD in my final year. So that's who I played with then. And when I played with UCD, it allowed me to play Gaelic football again. And then when I started playing Gaelic football again, I got picked for Dublin. And then I kind of, the soccer stopped.
It was just like
so the soccer stopped then. I didn't play soccer for a good while then. I just played Gaelic football. And then I thought, I've got a chance to have a few games of soccer again. So I played with Pegasus. So Pegasus is the postgraduate team from UCD. Okay, so while I was playing with them, there was only a few games playing with them, I got spotted against, I think it was Dundalk, by Billy Bean, which was the Man United.
Oh, he's done a few,
chief scout over there as well. And he asked me to come over. But I've no doubt the person really behind it all was a guy, my manager at UCD was a guy called Ronnie Nolan. And he was a big pal and friend of Billy Bean. And he would have seen me play all during that particular year. So he would have been in a position to say to Billy, I think this guy might have a chance. Mm. So when I started playing with Pegasus, Billy came to have a look, and then he brought me over.
Were you centre half when you were?
No, I came over as a fullback.
Oh, fullback.
Yeah, I was right back when I came over.
Yeah, okay.
And they asked me to come over for 2 weeks. I said no. I said I can't do 2 weeks because I just wanted to come over, look at the place, go back because I thought nothing would happen. You know what I mean? I wasn't.
What you it wasn't. No fear. It was. You just thought that it wasn't going to happen.
No, I just thought no. So I said I can only go for 3 days.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot to be said for that, because in 3 days you probably can't see enough.
Yeah, true.
2 weeks you can maybe see a lot more. But anyway, I came over for the 3 days, and I'll always remember at the end of the 3 days, Dave Sexton's bringing me back to my hotel, which ironically was the Cresta Court.
Oh, just beside,
just here. Yeah. And he dropped me off, and before he dropped me off, he said, listen, we'd like to offer you a 2.5-year contract.
After 3 days?
After 3 days. So I was a bit shocked by that. Wow. I can't.
Decision time.
Yeah. I said, do you mind if I take a few weeks to think about it? And he said, sure, by all means, go ahead. Take 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. And which it did take me that length of time.
Yeah.
But I've no doubt the person behind the 3 days mightn't be a lot, and you're right, was Billy Bean. Because Billy Bean had a phenomenon about him whereby he always told me this story. This was him. When he was this chief scout under Sir Matt Busby, he said to Sir Matt, I'm not sending you over anybody for the last 2 years, 2.5 years, so I don't think you should pay me any money. And Sir Matt said to him, that's the reason why you're worth the money more than anybody else, because if you send me over somebody, I know it's going to be half decent. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was just filtered through a little bit more. So therefore there was a reason for saying, listen, if Billy's sending him over, it must be half decent. Now, I didn't do too bad in the 2 or 3 days either, but it wasn't great.
You sent your dad over, Billy, didn't he? Is there anyone else more notable? Because I know Paul was about 22, like you would have been. Yeah. So do you think his form of sending players over was the more established?
He would have sent over Johnny Carey and Johnny Giles and Jerry Daly and McMartin, Ashley Grimes. Loads of them he sent over.
A lot of names.
Yeah, there's a lot of names that Billy sent over. Because he knew his stuff, but I think of them all, must have been the biggest gamble of the lot. You know what I mean? You know, because
just all a bit more matured as well at that age, like you say.
Yeah, they're all, but most of them were all coming from League of Ireland.
Yeah.
When you think about it, there wasn't. I can't remember too many schoolboy.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah,
that must have been a formula though for the success, the experience being more.
Possibly, maybe there was, because the likes of United or the other clubs might have a scout that looks at schoolboy players and then the scout that looks at more senior players.
Yeah.
So Billy might have been more looking at players from like League of Ireland that were playing at that particular level.
Why did it take 3 weeks to make a decision? So you said you initially didn't think you'd get it, but then the shock of getting it, was it the moving? Did you have a girlfriend you didn't want to leave? Was it the Gaelic football?
It was the Gaelic football.
Right, okay.
It was the Gaelic football. I'd just been part of the team. You know what I mean? We've won All Ireland in '76. We were going on to win we won the All Ireland in '77. And I'm thinking, this is just the best thing. I've got a really good job, good career forward. Do I want to, there's a lot. Do I want to go? And one day I'd go yes, the next day no, the next day yes, the next day no. But it was mainly, I would have felt I was letting down these guys. You know what I mean? If I was to go, I'd just come into the team. And
did you support anyone growing up?
Liverpool, ironically. But in the end, I'll always remember the decision was made on the back of, I have to go, because otherwise I'll always ask myself in 10, 20, 30 years, could I have made it?
Yeah.
And all I ever wanted to do when I went over was, I'll just play one game if I can and then come back. Yeah. I never looked upon it as a career or a job. It took me a couple of years before the penny dropped.
So you've made your decision. You've come over to Manchester. 78, was it? 1978. 78. Just tell us about your first experiences when you came over. Did you go into digs? Who do you first remember meeting? Were you in reserves?
I went into digs with... there was Dave McCreary was into digs then, going back, and a couple of young lads. And then Ashley Grimes came into the digs then as well. So Sandy, because you used to get a lift into training then with those guys.
Were you nervous or anything, Kev? Or was it, you just...
I wouldn't say nervous was the word. I knew I had a lot to learn. From a point of view of, even when I started playing, I would have started as a full back. But then they moved me. I couldn't even get in the reserve team. You know what I mean? When I came over at first, And I remember I went from the reserve team into the A team. Now, you remember the A team used to be made up of the young kids and the odd older player that might be coming back. So because I was a bigger guy there, after a couple of months, they put me centre back.
All right, shifted you over.
Because I was the big guy, you know what I mean? And that made a difference. And then I remember maybe a month or two later, so I went over in February. By the end of March into April, I remember breaking through into the reserve team, and to me that was a big plus then, at the time.
But it didn't. You say you couldn't get in at first, but it wasn't. It was only about a year later you did get in the first team, was it not?
It took
79 your debut.
Yeah, it was 79. It came a little bit later because, as I said, 78 then was that. Now during 78, when I went back for the holidays, I continued to play Gaelic football with Dublin, but I never
doing a bit of both.
But I never told the club. I never told the club because in those days nobody would know anything about it. You know what I mean?
You were saying that on the way down, weren't you? You know everything now, social media and everything.
Social media, you know everything. Media, papers, there's no mobiles, no nothing.
Kept it private and stuff.
Nothing ever went back.
Yeah.
So I continued playing all the way, and I played through all the games I could right up to the final.
Yeah.
And then for the final, they thought, the management said, we've got to go over and ask the club then for permission because it's too big a game to be able to keep quiet. And at this time I'm already well back into pre-season training as well, you see, because that's in September. So they did that. They came over and they asked Dave Sexton, and he was brilliant about it.
He was all right with it.
He was brilliant about it. He said, by all means, he says, tell you what, why don't you go over for a week and train with them? Which in hindsight was a disaster. You might say, well, why? Because I went over, and on the Tuesday before the game, while training with the guys, I pulled my hamstring badly.
So that's not a quick fix, is it?
That's no quick fix.
Yeah.
And not only that, I then went and played the whole game, and just absolutely, would have torn it asunder, I think, because I struggled like hell trying to run around the pitch.
Had you made United first team debut?
No.
So you hadn't made this yet?
No, I was just reserve team. So I came back from that, and it took me nearly 3 months. It went about two or three times. The hamstring went again and again, and it took me till nearly January before I was fit again.
So that probably put you a quarter of a year behind maybe starting.
A little bit starting.
But if Dave Sexton gave you the permission, what was the feeling that club like? Was Sir Matt sort of looking and thinking, what are you doing that? Or like, what would the feelings been?
It wouldn't have been too bad, because at the time, once again, I'm playing in the reserve team. I'm probably doing okay. But, I'm still nowhere near the first team. In the first team at the time was Gordon McQueen and Martin Buchan. They were the two. Now,
proper players.
They were coming closer and closer to finishing, but they're still a little bit away. And a guy, a Yugoslav guy, who was a lovely fellow, Nikolai Jovanovic was his name. He was kind of like another substitute in there, with them. So I was kind of like a little bit away from it. But what got me the break, and the reason why I made my debut, was against Southampton.
Yeah.
And that was just before, the cup final. So the manager was resting all the players then as well, really, But I remember before that particular game, I played a friendly game, Peter Bonetti's testimonial.
Right.
For Chelsea. And I remember that was a big breakthrough. Now I was really playing in the first team. And then I remember getting the feedback that you've done well, So that's what you've always wanted to hear.
Yeah.
But the one thing that came out of it, not only that, but even later on, which was a great benefit to me from playing Gaelic football, was the crowd. So I was never nervous.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the crowd. It didn't make me nervous before going out, which, to be honest with you, I often think there's a lot of players now that suffer because of the crowd, the expectation and all of that that demands.
Occasion,
and whereas I was in a really good position from the Gaelic football, I've been able to have a lot of experience from that.
Yeah.
And not only that, to be able to go and enjoy the crowd.
Right.
It was harder for me when there was no crowd.
And you were fit from the Gaelic football?
From the Gaelic football, I was obviously fit.
So permanently fit.
Yeah. So what would have been the most difficult thing for you starting out? So crowds are not a problem, fitness is fine. What would have been the most difficult thing to deal with?
For any player, the mental side of it is the most difficult. Keeping it simple. And I always remember Dave Sexton saying to me, he says, just get it and give it. Get it and give it. And I remember thinking to myself, before going out on the pitch, I'd say that to myself.
Yeah.
You just win the ball, get it and give it. Keep it simple. It's only when you start thinking that you can do something you can't do, you start making a mess of yourself.
Yeah, my dad used to say that. Just give it to the ball players. He's like, just get it, give it simple, and just let them deal with it. Let them But
your dad was so good. This is. I've always said this about Paul. He didn't believe in himself as much as he could. I couldn't do what Paul could do. You know what I mean? Yeah. He had so much power and ability and strength and everything that he could do so much more. But it's ironic because I think a lot of the time he did think that. I'd get it and I'll just give it to Robbo, or I'll give it to Ray Wilkins, or I'll give it to somebody else.
Always used to say that to me,
But as a centre-back, it's nearly what you should do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You should do it that way. And nowadays, the game is very much about passing the ball.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Whereas in our day, when you played it, it wasn't so much about passing it 10 yards or 20 yards or whatever. It was about getting the ball forward as quickly as possible and having it in the box and making something happen, and action all over the place.
Yeah, it's just like mayhem, innit? It's just like you attack, we attack.
Exactly.
Fast throw-ins and things like that. And
people didn't mind if the ball went astray or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas now, you go to a game and if it's a bad,
to be a ball,
if it's a bad pass, you hear the crowd going,
Yeah.
Whereas in our day, a bad pass was never booed.
Yeah.
Because it was all about almost putting the ball into space, gaining ground, getting it, putting it into the box. It was more
Makes
action.
me nervous now, all the football at the back. And that makes me really nervous.
But if you think about it now, it's changing again.
Yeah.
Because they're not knocking it out so much at the back now as well, because they realise now a lot of the players can't do it. They get caught.
Yeah.
And the next thing you get caught, and many goals have been scored as a result of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So as you're kind of getting more established at United, you started playing more games. Who was the biggest influence on you, and who were you close to at the club?
Well, because of playing centre-back, I'd have to say the likes of Martin Buchan and Gordon McQueen would have helped.
They were good with you?
They were really good with me. And early doors as well, Ray Wilkins was.
Oh, what a guy.
Ray was really good as well. And then after that, I would say the likes of Bryan was, and so was Frank Stapleton as well. They were always guys that were more than willing to,
Who would you have sat next to in the dressing room, Kev? Did you have a set position? Or?
You would have had, but I nearly forget who it was. As such, whoever was playing next to you. I think they put the shorts out in that order.
Yeah, all right, okay.
They did put the shorts out in line with how you actually played and what way you went around. Yeah. That was for the game then as well. Yeah.
And Dave Sexton how was he with you?
He was brilliant with me. He helped me an awful lot. I think he knew how raw I was. How much I still had to learn. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that was the case. But he thought. He could see possibly the strengths that I did have, and then he was just trying to add other things to it, and get me to have a look at certain things and how to pass it this way or that way.
Just always learning, aren't you?
Yeah, always learning. You know what I mean? I always think. I look back and I always think a player in football. There's no way you shouldn't be learning every single year. Every single year.
Yeah.
And if you can't say to yourself, do you know what? I'm a better player this year than I was last year. To me, that means you're not going forward, you're going back.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you were really gutted when Dave Sexton left the club. How did you feel?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised. Here's the ironic thing about it was Dave Sexton left the club and in his final season, we had a bad season for whatever reasons. But in his final season, I played the last 7 games. It's the only time I ever played in midfield.
Did you?
Yeah, and right side midfield. We won all 7 games.
Yeah.
And yet he got the sack after that.
Oh God!
So God knows what position we were in before then. So it was ironic that just to play those games. Now, as a job to do then, I wasn't being creative in midfield or anything like that. I wouldn't have anything like the skill or ability that other midfield players would have. But it was just ironic, just to do the job that he wanted to do was ironic.
So Matt Busby obviously was a major part of the club then. Could you feel his presence? Did he have much involvement? Did you have much to do with him?
No, he obviously had a massive presence around the place, but never saw him at the training ground. I never saw him having any influence on the manager or whatever like that. It was never the case. No, I never saw him interfere or anything like that. So I never once saw him at the training ground, so no.
So the next manager... Big Ron
came then, yeah.
Did you know much about him before he came?
Champagne.
Well, all we heard was when he came first, he had a couple of the training sessions and he made a statement. He said, we'll be lucky if there's 4 players here at the end of the season from this squad, So there was a lot. Right. And then there was a lot of speculation among the guys, who's staying, who's going. And at one stage, it looked like I thought I was on the move.
Right.
Because Dave Sexton left and went to Coventry City. And he came back in with an offer for both Mickey Duxbury and myself.
All right.
Oh. And...
That's mad. You both played a fair few games in the 80s, didn't you?
We did, for Mickey Duxbury and myself. And I'm not sure, I never asked Ron, but I'm not sure the reason why he said no to it. Because he would have had money to maybe go and look for somebody else or whatever else. But in the end, I don't know whether he was advised, no, listen, hold on to these two.
Mick stayed as well, didn't he? Yeah.
Mick stayed till 1990.
Yeah, he did, playing with England then as well after that as well. So all of a sudden we stayed, and not as many players left as they would have thought was, you know what I mean? Which is usually the case,
So Big Ron's come in. He's starting to form a bit of a side now, isn't he? Who would have been that back line from as you get going towards the 83 Cup final?
He brought in John Gidman. John Gidman played right back. Arthur Albertson was the left back, always there, Arthur. And then the centre backs when I come in, I would have played then a lot alongside maybe Gordon more so in 83 before Paul came into the equation then as well, really, So it would have been, Paul and I should have been the partnership for a good while, I think.
Yeah.
But the problem was we kept getting injured. If he got injured, I wasn't, and I got injured, he was, we could never put together a big string of games 20 games or something like that, It was just such a shame that that never happened.
It is a shame, yeah.
And I look back afterwards now, and there's what was it? Gary Pallister and Steve Bruce.
Yeah.
And they would have put 6 or 7 seasons together without missing a game, you know what I mean? Which was incredible,
Yeah.
Whereas Paul and I just been unfortunate with injuries, maybe.
Yeah, and then if we kind of go to the 82-83 season when you won the FA Cup, obviously a lot of United fans always remember, and you came to get legendary status when you got stretched off. Was it in the semi-final against Arsenal? And you were giving the fans the thumb up whilst getting stretched on, which is...
You don't see that nowadays with lads, do you? With the players.
Do you remember that?
I do indeed remember it, yeah. It was just a feeling of, you kind of felt we've won the game, there's not long left in it, you know what I mean? it was a sense of, jubilation about it, even though the face was cut right open at the top,
Yeah.
But, there was that feeling. But I have a funny story to tell about that, because I come off. So I go in and I'm on the table getting stitched up by the doctor. So I'm saying to him, hurry up, will you? Can you hurry up? He says, I want to go back out. He says, you're not going back out. He says, you can't go. No, I said, just to walk. Just to get to walk around the pitch, because the celebration then is when you win the game, and just to be there for the fans to do that.
Yeah.
And he put in the last stitch, which is about 9 stitches, I think, or 10. And just as he puts the last one in, the lads all barreled into the dressing room, so there was no going back out, So naturally enough, so everybody's celebrating and we're having a great time. And then I can remember afterwards we're having the bath, and in those days there was the big communal bath, it wouldn't have now. And I remember asking Arthur Albison, Arthur, can you help me just hold my head back here while I wash my hair? Then keep the stitches out of the water, because they were just open. And the lads were messing about celebrating, and they grabbed Mick Brown, who was the coach then at the time, and they threw Mick in, and Mick landed straight on my head. Split the whole thing wide open again. I was back out on the treatment table, and the doc was booming in to put another 10 stitches back in there. So
Did just stitch you up there and then?
Yeah, there and then, yeah.
And just a little. So when you have been cut so many times, did you put anything above you, like dubbing or anything, or just crack on?
No, you just
when you're playing.
You don't put anything else above it.
Proper blokes, aren't they?
Yeah, it's unheard of now. They'd be in hospital for a couple of days. Well, yeah.
But so 83 Cup final. This is kind of first United win for I think since '77. Was that obviously an amazing experience? But do you have any memories of the day?
It was a nervy time, because remember the first game they had a great chance to win it, and they didn't. But I must admit, the replay I loved, because there's not often you get a chance to,
to Wembley's,
to not so much to Wembley's, but to enjoy a game, because your intention focuses very much on the game then itself. You might enjoy the game more so afterwards because you've got the result, but during the game, it's not like looking around and taking it all in or anything like that. But in the replay, you could, because 3-0 up at half time. We get a penalty which Arnold Muren converts for 4-0 up. Yeah. The game's all over. I think there must have been about 20, 25 minutes to go.
Playing with a grin on your face.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking around the stadium, seeing all the crowds, singing and taking it all in, loving it. So it was a great time to be able to take in that sort of an atmosphere and feeling. Whereas a lot of times you wouldn't be able to do that. You can't do that.
Do you still have your medals?
Oh, yes, yeah, of course I have. Yeah.
Obviously, big celebrations. What do you remember? What you got up to? Do you just have a load of beers in the change room? Do you have a hotel club, or do you come back to Manchester? What do you know?
Well, after the '83 game, we stayed down there and we stayed in a hotel. The Complete Angler, I think we stayed in down by Marlow, and prior to that, we stayed in another hotel there. But after the replay, we came back on the train straight after the game. So there was just drinks on the train and celebrations on the train and that,
Do you get bonuses and things for winning cups in them days?
You do. You do get bonuses. And the bonuses were usually quite generous, I think, at the time. But I have no idea what that number is. But it would have been quite generous then as well, really, yeah.
Were you happy with your contracts throughout United?
Yeah, I can't say I was displeased with them. You know what I mean? You're always trying to think, can you get a little bit more and all the rest of it. But overall, yeah, when you consider it in relative to maybe other players and other clubs and everything like that, United never paid, the sort of money that people might think they would have. You know what I mean? I always remember thinking, I think the Liverpool players would have got paid more. Yeah. But, it never bothered you. I think there was an element, go on, you're playing for Manchester United now. There's a little price to pay for that. It's not the question now. It's completely the opposite.
How do you negotiate that back then? The agents or captains?
There wasn't so much. Agents were beginning to arrive on the scene, but they didn't really arrive until the Premiership came into place. When the money started coming into it then as well, really. Yeah. So I would have just gone in and said, oh, by the way, this is what you're getting. Yeah, oh, okay. I thought it might
yes or no,
yeah. It was just a big run, this is what you're getting.
Well, your career's really taking off now, and you're getting around. Well, you will have already had your first Island cap. Was that obviously loving the Gaelic football, but playing for your country? Do you remember?
Yeah,
that? It was amazing.
That was an amazing moment. I've now played for, Manchester United, we played for Ireland, played for Dublin first, and then Manchester United. Then, there's your three. You couldn't ask for three bigger situations, really. If someone said to you, who's the teams you want to play for?
Yeah, exactly.
There's three of them. Yeah. It's Dublin, it's Man United, and it's Ireland.
Country, yeah.
So your country, playing for the country was obviously, an amazing moment then as well, really. You put the shirt on, you look at it, and you just think, wow. Yeah, come a long way.
And back then, because obviously we've spoke to Frank, we spoke to Paul, and we kind of always said, like, so from 88 to 94 there were the 3 qualifications, so everyone, that's the glory period. But Frank was quite strongly said the 82 side was probably even stronger, just a bit more unlucky. What are your feelings on that?
I do remember 82, and we were so unlucky. I can remember we went to France and we had a goal disallowed. It was a perfectly legitimate goal. I went up for a ball and I've headed it down. And I think Michael Robinson finished it, and that would have put us through.
Yeah.
And not only that, we had another game later on from that, Belgium, when they were awarded a free kick outside the box. They were looking for a penalty because the fella dived and the referee just gave it to him outside the box, and they scored from that after the ball hit the crossbar and back down. But also in that game we had a legitimate goal disallowed.
Ruled out
so
again.
we were so unlucky, in that age.
Good side.
And we had a really good team then as well. Yeah, we had.
Yeah.
What was so disappointing, I think, from 82 was, you look at it, you think, why didn't it kick on to 84, and 86, in many ways. And that was disappointing, but why that never happened,
How did you find international football? Obviously, if you look at United, you just won the FA Cup and they went a decent run in Europe the following year, Cup Winners' Cup. How did you find the difference in style compared to playing in England? Was there anything you had to do different?
Yeah, the international one was very much, I thought, at the back was about concentration and mental capacity to concentrate on what's happening and movement. It's all about movement of players, and it's a slower build-up, a quicker movement when they go through. Whereas, as I said, with United, it's fast forward, so it's easier to concentrate on it because it's balls moving all the time, you're in action all the time. But I can remember playing a game, an international game, thinking, hey, I'm playing well here. I'm in control, I'm in charge. And I thought, I don't think I've touched the ball for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's just because, you're just the different styles then as regards it. So then to me, very much it's about, and especially today now as well, because the play at times can be just so fast. That if you just switch off for a second, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So we're going to just quickly jump on. We've got a few different questions for the 85 Cup final. I'm sure you get asked about
certain bringing this one up
all the time. We wanted to ask you, obviously, you got sent off, and it probably wasn't a sending off, definitely wasn't a sending off then. Do you think it would be a sending off now?
No, I don't think it would be even now. Because somebody was already back. Paul was already coming back around then as well. He was a long way from goal. It's not like he's straight through and he's going to score.
Yeah, it was up there,
so I wouldn't have thought so. And even when it happened, if I made a bad decision, I've always thought, God, I've felled the guy there. I didn't think I had, because I went in slowly for the ball. And my foot's low on the ground. It's not high.
Peter Reid was trying to console you, wasn't he?
He was, yeah, because I knew Peter well. We all knew each other well around that time. And he was just, but I wouldn't blame Peter at all, because we're coming in at different angles. I'm going that way and he's going that way. So he's kind of fall over my body as I've come in, but it does look as if I've nearly taken him out.
Lifted him out,
and I can see that. I didn't realise that until I saw it in a replay.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, God, that doesn't look good.
Did you hold anything against the old man, because he shortchanged you with the pass?
Yeah,
because
he felt bad. He
did, yeah. I remember saying that.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
He did say that to me.
He said it ruined his night. That night.
He said, "I want to give you my medal." I said, "Go away out of that. Go away out of that." No, you can't blame him for that, really.
What about the ref? Did he annoy? Obviously, you weren't happy, rightfully so. Did you try to say anything to him after the game? Have you seen him since?
No, I've never seen him since. So I'm just there on the pitch. I was trying to say to him, "Why are you sending me off for? What have I done? Tell me what I was." I was mad to try and get him, and Frank's holding me back.
Yeah,
you remember that? He says, "Go away from him." And Robbo's in there going mad with him as well. So, it was all mayhem then at the time. But he was just, he wouldn't say anything. He was just obstinate, hand out, saying, "You're off."
When you sat in the dugout, because I've seen the footage where you're just obviously fuming. When Norman scored that goal and the whistle went and we'd won it, did you feel obviously there's going to be mixed emotions. Was it a bit of relief because you'd been sent off, even though you didn't think you'd been sent off, or was there like, I wish I was on the? Do you know what I mean?
No, there was only one sense of it. There was only one sense. It was a sense of relief that we'd won the game, because if you'd lost the game, you're always going to blame yourself. You got sent off.
Yeah.
You know, you're down to 10 men. You're giving the advantage over to the other team. So that was the thing. So afterwards, the fact I got sent off was totally irrelevant.
Yeah.
People say, "Are you all right? Are you okay? You got sent." I'm thinking, what's the big deal? People get sent off. You know, it's no big deal. It's a cup final. Yeah. So we won the game.
Yeah.
But if it was lost the game 1-0 afterwards, well, then it's a different ball game, completely different ball game in terms of people coming over to me. Are you all right? And I would say, no, I'm not all right. You know, consoling you then, yes. Yeah. But there's no need for any consolation afterwards because we won the game. And even today, it's fascinating and that amazes me how people still come, sorry to mention it, the cup final. And I go, well, why? Because we won the game. You know, it's not that we lost the game.
Did they mess you about with your medal, didn't they, Kev? You didn't get one for a while, didn't you?
They did. Actually, there's another good story as regards Peter Eyre. Remember Peter Eyre used to be with a city journalist as well, okay. and that he was at the cup final at that time, and he waited till everybody had left the stadium nearly, and he comes down, and he says he wanted to stand in the box where the dignitaries are and all the rest of it, and he looks down, and lo and behold, there's my medal, because I was told I couldn't get it.
All right.
Right. So they'd left it behind him even.
No.
Nobody even picked it up. And he actually picked it up and gave it back to the FA.
Cool, that's lucky.
But it was ironic because before Fanji said what happened, Ron Atkinson pulled me, says, "Oh, by the way, Kevin, I've just been told that you can't get your medal."
No way.
You know, and it didn't bother me. Honestly, it really didn't bother me too much. I said, "Oh, boy." He says, "Listen, I don't know why, but I tell you what, you deserve to go up those steps, so you go up the steps." So I said, fine. So I went up the steps, and sure enough, the guy's there giving me up the medal. He doesn't know anything about it, so he's giving me that. I could have taken it, just took it and gone. Yeah. And in the end, I actually said to him, "No, sorry, I can't have it." You know, so he just kept it and put it back, and that's how Peter.
Wow. You obviously got to lift the cup and everything.
What?
You got to lift the cup.
Oh yeah, I was up there with everybody celebrating.
And that was good. And did that impact your celebrations that night at all?
That's what I say. Not on the slightest.
It happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course, it happens. You know, as I said, if we'd lost, different ball game. We'd won the game. I'm as elated as everybody else.
Roll on the celebrations.
Doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah, I bet I've seen a couple of interviews where Norman's saying, "But I was getting more."
That's right. I felt sorry for him. Yeah. He says I've scored the best goal at Wembley, and he's getting more limelight than I am.
But that was a great set of lads there. Who around this time then? There's a few more Irish boys there. Who would you have been like? Who did you knock about with? Where did you all go out and things?
We knocked around mainly with the lads who lived in more or less in around the area around here. You know, we used to go to a pub, Paddy Crichton's pub, and that was a local. But then there was in town as well. We went to a few of the nightclubs, Bavardage and Brambles and a few places like that. But in general, you know, I knocked around up with Paul, Gordon McQueen, Bryan Robson, most Norman as well.
Yeah.
You know? And all of a sudden, there was a little bit of a reputation of the guys. You know, these guys are the drinking lads then as well and everything. But that used to annoy me a little bit. Not so much from my point of view, but if you ask the supporters week in, week out, name your three best players, I'm telling you, they never would have gone too far outside Robbo, Paul and Norman Whiteside. You know?
Norm sort of said that, didn't he?
Yeah.
He said something similar.
But the other sides, even Liverpool, they were on the base.
It was just a thing, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was a thing because we hadn't won the league. You know what I mean?
What stopped us, do you think, Kevin?
Oh, good question. What stopped us? You know, you look back.
The squad was there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just in your opinion, do you think because there's that famous season where we won 10 in a row?
10 in a row. That was the year I thought, we're going to have to do that now. It was a bit of a body blow, I thought, Robbo getting injured after, I think, 15, 16 games or something like that, you know. And he was out for a long time, and he was a major part. Yeah. He really was.
Yeah.
He was, you know, a player that was at the back and the midfield, up front. He scored goals, he stopped goals. You know, he was all round the best player I played with.
Unbelievable.
And he was a major loss, but it shouldn't have been that case. You know, we should have been able to do better, get over it a little bit more. But what people forget is that particular season when Liverpool won it, right? They finished their last 13 games with 12 wins and a draw.
Yeah, strong.
That's that sort of thing City have done, hasn't it? Like over the recent years.
A lot of times it's how you finish, not how you start.
Yeah.
So obviously, famously, Big Ron left the club. How were your feelings about that? Do you think it was the club needed something different? Did you have a good relationship with him, so you were upset?
Yeah, I got on quite well with Big Ron. You know, I never had any issues with him or anything like that. It's always disappointing when a manager leaves. Yeah, you obviously feel for him, but you can understand it. You know, performances, results just weren't good enough. But then there's always now the question of, you know, what's next? Who comes in next? And players are always more worried about, you know, where am I going to stand now with the new manager? Am I going to be here? Am I not going to be here? There's going to be a lot of changes you would have expected. And that really was the case. But when Sir Alex came in, I must admit, what he did do was, it wasn't wholesale changes straight away. He took a while to assess everything and the situation and that, you know.
Did he confide in any players specifically? Like you would have been there like 8 years, coming towards a senior.
I wouldn't have thought he certainly don't remember confiding in me too much, but I think he definitely would have confided in Bryan.
Yeah.
You know, as Bryan was captain, you know, and he would have gone to him and talked to him a lot about the team or whatever he thinks about. I can always remember him talking to players, even when I was there, maybe at the back, he'd say, what do you think of him? Now, you might have played against him, and that's the reason why he'd ask you, which was a good question. You know, if you played against a centre forward, he'd ask, what do you think of him? What do you think of Graham Sharp? You know, what do you think of somebody else like that, you know? Which would make sense, you know, to get a feel for what a player is like.
Yeah.
So he would say that sort of a question out there. But in general, he was very much his own man and his own boss. You know.
Do you get on with him? Did you?
Yeah, I never had a fallout with him. No, I never had a fallout with him at any stage. I do remember going in to see him when I was leaving, asking him the reason why. I said, do you mind me asking you why you let me go? And he says, well, 2 reasons, Kevin. He said, one, he says, I would like my centre halves to be at least 6 foot. And I said, well, not much I can do about that. And the other one, he says, I'm building a team and I want, you know, you're the wrong side of 30. You know what I mean? I was just 32 then as well. That made perfect sense then as well, really. Yeah. So you can understand that, you know what I mean, going forward. And yet, ironically, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Because if I'd stayed, I'd have played a very, very bit part, you know, which would have been very frustrating. In the end, I get a chance to almost get a whole new lease of life, you know, and resurrect my career almost and go to Spain. You know, and learn.
Did you always want to go abroad? Did that ever cross your mind or anything?
No, it never really crossed my mind until it happened.
Yeah.
It was ironic because that was in 88, right? The Euros were coming up, you know, with Ireland, which we'd qualified for.
Yeah.
And I'd played in all the games in the Euros, and then in the games in the Euros, I played in all the games there, the 3 of them. And while I was playing there is when Sporting Kehoe was looking at it, which often is the case. You know, foreign teams look at international games like that. And then after that, I got a call from somebody over in Spain saying, would you fancy coming over? And when I thought about it, I said, this makes sense. Because ironically, the only other club in for me was Stoke City at the time. Now, there's a lot of talk about Man City being interested, but it never came to any fruition.
Yeah.
So in the end, it was a chance, you know, to have a whole new life change experience, which was great. We had 2 young kids. Dara was 3 the day we went over there, and Rachel was just 6 months old.
So, if you had, before you went to Spain, if you had the conversation with Sir Alex, he said to you, you know, I'm going to move you on, would that have been in the summer and your contract's coming to an end?
Yes.
So, did you play for Ireland in the Euros uncontracted? Correct.
Yeah.
So, did you think well, obviously you're going to want to win for your country, but was there any thought of where am I going next? What's going on? Or
no, not really. Not really. I'd never think about it that way. You know, as far as I was concerned, you're playing the Euros, you're getting involved with that. I've always a great saying, don't cross bridges until you come to them. So I'll sort that out when the season starts, you know what I mean? I'd already got a club that was interested, Stoke, you know what I mean? So you know, and even after the Euros, you know, I think, you know, that there could even be more interest maybe from English clubs or whatever. But in the end, the Spanish one was the one I really thought, hey, I fancy this. This is going to be really interesting.
Was there any differences, like when you were playing for Sporting? Was like training different compared to
different.
Yeah, so it was a big adaptation
How did
for
you deal
you.
with the language barrier?
I had to learn the language as soon as we went over there. My wife and I, and even Darren, went straight into a school straight away.
Yeah.
You know, so that was tough for him, but he picked it up very quickly. And we had lessons 2 or 3 times a week to try and learn it, because nobody in the dressing room except for one guy had half English, but nobody else spoke English.
Wow.
But not only that, even in the shops in Gion, nobody spoke English there. It's not like Malaga or somewhere like that. Or it wouldn't be the case now, maybe. You know, but back then, you know, English wasn't spoken. You know, it was very, very Spanish place. So, which was great. So it made you learn the language.
Forced you, really, yeah.
You know, forced you into doing it.
What was it like going to, did you end up playing against Madrid and Barcelona?
Oh, yeah.
And going to the big stadiums? What was that like?
It was brilliant. You know, I mean, my second game or third game was Madrid at home. You know, full stadium, brilliant, playing against them. And we got a credible 2-2 draw. So, you know, it worked out not bad. And then I go away. I've got a good photograph of when we went to play Barcelona away. Got a good photograph of myself and Gary Lineker, hands around each other for the photo.
Class.
You know, because he's playing for Barcelona at the time. Was
Sporting. Was there anyone kind of notable at Sporting coming through, or did you?
There was one player that you might have heard of, Luis Enrique.
PSG.
So he would have been young then.
He came through about 17, 18.
No way.
Yeah, and he played there before heading on to have an amazing career with Barcelona, Madrid, and then go on as well. And
could you see it then?
He was such a slight lad; it was unbelievable. You know what I mean, there wasn't a pick on him. You know.
Wow.
And but you could tell he had ability. You know, he had ability and he got speed. You know what I mean? But you know, you could never tell he was going to go on and do what he has done, which is just incredible. You know, and you look at him now as a manager. What a career! Unbelievable.
Obviously, Spain, bigger country. What for away games? How'd you get there? Is it coach, fly, and who'd you room with?
No, it wasn't great. Believe me, it was. We were in up in the north of Spain. So I remember after about our third game of the season, we were playing Real Betis, which is way down south, right? And so we got, well, how are we getting there? Well, we're going to get a plane. Oh, that's good. We get a plane. No, we're not from Gijon. We're going to get the bus, which is 5.5 hours from Gijon, 5 hours to Madrid. And then we'll get a plane from Madrid down to Betis, you know.
Hard work.
But after the game coming back, we're on the overnight train. So I'm thinking, well, that's not too bad. Get the overnight train all the way. So again, the overnight train, 7 hours later, 8 o'clock in the morning, stops off at Madrid. I thought we were going to be in Gijon. We were in Madrid. Back on the coach for 5 hours and up to the way. So that's how we travelled back in those days. This was not a rich club.
You're earning your money there.
This was not a rich club, yeah.
And you got obviously, did it develop you as a player in any way for the kind of next big tournament in your life, which was Italia 90?
Yeah, it definitely helped me as well from the point of view of, I remember I said before with Dave Sexton and Ron, get it and give it and all the rest of it. And, you know, it was all quick, so you got rid of it quickly and all the rest of it. Now in Spain, you know, it was more the way football is played now here. It was we always almost talked about it as the continental way of playing, whereby you were let to have the ball. So now all of a sudden you were given the ball at the back and you'd have it and you'd pass it. And so all of a sudden I became a lot more comfortable on the ball. You know what I mean? And much more better in possession, more just having it. Even if somebody came near you, you were okay, you'd knock it off or do it there, we get 1-2. You know, you're doing things that you weren't able to do at United. You know what I mean? In some ways, because it just wasn't the way the game was being played back then. You know? So I remember thinking when I came back and joined Blackburn Rovers, I felt, wow, I'm a far better player here with Rovers than I almost was with United.
Yeah, that's good. Did you enjoy your time in Spain?
Loved it.
Yeah, did you?
It was a great experience. Yeah, it really was. Yeah.
Just ask a couple of questions about Italia 90. I remember someone who commented on one of our posts to say you were coming on, wanted to ask a quick question of, after you left, how did you feel about when Sir Alex signed Mal Donaghy? Because wasn't he similar age and height?
He was.
So
I left that part out when I said it because I said I wouldn't bring it in, but it's true. I must admit, I've gone to Spain. I'm over there. It's about 5 months. I pick up the paper. I said they've signed from Luton Town, Mal Donaghy, 800,000, which was a lot of money back then. And he was exactly the same, the two criteria that Alex had said to me. It's the same stat that he'd mentioned to me, and I thought, hey, that doesn't sound right, you know. But hey, in saying that, I'm so pleased at the end of the day that I did go, and that I had the opportunity to go to Spain.
Perfect. And then obviously Italia 90, great tournament for Ireland. You kind of did your job at the back there because there was a lot of draws, wasn't there? Obviously, when you got back, the fans was...
Unbelievable. Just 1.25 million people, from
just
the
unreal, wasn't it?
It was just unreal. It was incredible. And that's how it was. It took over the whole country then as well. Everybody was all talking about it, and in some ways, as much as we were over there, you missed out on what was happening back home. We saw videos at times of it, and you get that feeling and buzz. But the delight that you have, that this joy that you've given your fans, the country, you can't. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Very patriotic.
Chris, that's what it's all about.
Very patriotic.
It's
Irish fans.
But they are. You talk about the Scottish fans, this World Cup as well, and everybody loved it. And that's what, and the Irish were like that as well.
Yeah.
And then when they welcomed you back home, then as well, I remember Jack Charlton thinking, "Oh my goodness, that's just ridiculous." He said, "Jeez, you think we won the cup?" It was almost like that. But it was just a pride that everybody felt in what we had achieved.
Did Jack Charlton have much influence on your career in any way, like specifically? I know he did with Paul. He was a real close support.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, but certainly with Paul. But yeah, he had a way about him that we all. He allowed us a freeway and a pathway which was a bit unique. You know what I mean? And he almost, without whether he knew it or not, allowed us to develop what I'd say a camaraderie among us that was just unheard of. It was unique.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt about it that camaraderie, it went out on the pitch as well with us. You know what I mean? Because we were close together off it, we were very close together on it then as well, really.
Yeah.
But it did work.
Yeah, you all seem to invest in it, and then just
Yeah.
Like you say, the camaraderie.
The camaraderie was brilliant. There's no doubt about it. It does help.
Loved it.
Yeah, it was great. It really was. We had a lot of fun. We enjoyed it, and as a result, we got some great results from it.
You did. Do you go back to, obviously I think you've got properties in Ireland, do you get a lot of fans coming up to you asking about memories, about the type of things we're talking about now?
Sometimes. It depends. If you go to a place in Ireland where you wouldn't have been seen for a long time, like a different county or a different place like that, yes, you would probably, more people go, but, look, it's there, Paul would know that as well. So you get all that. And once again, they're just delighted to be able to say hello.
Yeah.
And I'd get it a lot because of the fact that the Gaelic football, the older people would remember me from Gaelic football days. Yeah. And then if you're over in Ireland, you're a Man United fan, you're an Ireland fan,
Yeah. So then you've got your tan, you're coming back from Spain. Blackburn Rovers, how did that move? What was the reason for that?
Blackburn was interesting because I was looking to come back because this was in about January 90, and I wanted to be back before the World Cup then as well, to make sure to get into the team for the World Cup beforehand, because there was a young player coming through from Sporting Keyhole called Abelardo. He was a great player as well, played for Spain and went on to play for Madrid, I think, as well. And he was coming in, and my place looked a little bit dodgy then, so I thought it'd be a good time maybe to go back. So I think I let one or two journalists know, and Peter Fitton was one at the time, and he was very close with Big Ron. So next thing, Big Ron gets in touch with me. He says, "Listen, I'd like you to come back to." He was manager then at Sheffield Wednesday.
Right.
And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll be interested." And he said, "I said, what much are you talking about?" And he goes, "This, and that." I said, "That?" I said, "Geez, I thought I'd get more than that." He says, "More than that?" So I know what you were on at United. You weren't even getting that. So there you go. So he was, that was a big round. How he sounded, big round. So you could understand the way he was doing it. And I go, let me think. He said, "Don't come back to me looking for more money." He says, "If you think, you go, don't come back looking for more, And I know, kind of tongue in cheek. And then the next thing, a week or so, Blackburn Rovers come in, and Newcastle come in.
All right.
And so did West Brom come in.
Right, flooding.
So all of a sudden, almost 2 years before that, I've one club.
Yeah.
And now I'm coming back nearly a year and a half later, and there's 4 clubs, big clubs as well.
Yeah.
So the next thing, Blackburn Rovers came in, and fair play to the manager then was a guy called Tom Mackay. He came over to meet me, and I thought that was really good, to show
persuasive
persuasive as well. And he told me where the plans were for Blackburn Rovers, that Jack Walker was coming in, and Jack Walker was going to invest into the club in a big way, and we're going to have money to buy and spend, and we'd like you to come, and I liked that. And the deal he offered me was a very good deal, way better than Ron. So the next thing I went, and I decided to sign for Blackburn Rovers. So Ron comes, hey, what's this all about? You signed for me?
I would have given you.
And he said, but you told me not to come back to you. I got a better deal. So he just left it at that. So it worked once again. I've been so fortunate. So look, what a great decision.
Yeah.
Because you joined Blackburn Rovers when it was literally starting to go just on the up.
Yeah.
So you were part of that as well.
Another
So
project,
it was great.
Did coming to the Northwest have any pull?
That was a pull, definitely, because I was able to come back to my own house that we had where we stayed when I was at United. And you could commute from there. It was only 45 minutes to Blackburn from there.
Was there a few of you that you could just
and Frank was there as well from Stapleton. So it worked out well with the club, just starting to go on the way up then.
I know she got the promotion.
He played in the playoff final, the first ever. And we got up, because that particular year, Don Mackay didn't last. He lasted about just over a year while I was there. And then Kenny Dalglish came in with Ray Harford. And they obviously knew that they had money to spend, and they brought in certain players then as well, really. Like Gordon Cowns was a brilliant player to brought in, and so Mike Newell up front. And there was other players, Stuart Ripley. There was a lot of good players being brought in. Proper players to be brought in then as well, really, Colin Hendry at the back. So you knew it was going in the right direction. So we eventually got up via the playoffs, even though at one stage we were a couple of points clear at the top, and then we lost 6 consecutive games, and we had to win our last game just to make the playoffs.
Twitchy.
So it was twitchy times then as well. But fortunately, we made it to the final where I think we played Leicester. We beat them 1-0.
Matt Newell-Penn. We actually
That's right.
had an interview with him a week back, and he was telling us about that.
Yeah.
But obviously then you've gone into the Premiership as a team that's just gone up, and it was a real good first season for Blackburn, came fourth. What are your feelings in that season? Could you see it was a side that was going towards not just...
You knew that. Well, it was ironic because I felt a little bit for David Speedy because he was our key player at the time. But Kenny wanted Alan Shearer to come in, so he said to him, listen, you're going to have to go. And he said... And he scored most of the goals for us going up, and he had a great season as well. But you can understand where Kenny was coming from. Yeah. So he made way for Alan to come in, and then Alan was... We all know what Alan Shearer was like. He was phenomenal. He was fantastic in every way, shape, or form. On the pitch, off the pitch, training, everything about him was good. So all of a sudden, you could see you could build a team just there with Alan.
And he got injured, didn't he? Matt might have got injured in that first season. He did his knee, didn't he, on January '93, I think. Yeah, and I think that might have just gone a little bit further up.
True.
Just on that '92-'93 season, before we kind of come to the end of your playing days. How did you feel at Old Trafford that night, the final game, one of the final games of the season, when United had won the league and they lifted the trophy? What were your thoughts and feelings?
I was delighted. Well, I knew we couldn't have won the league that season, so if we weren't going to win it, I wanted United to win it. So I was delighted for them. I knew all the guys there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You'd still see them during Robbo and Paddy and Brucey, a whole lot of them. You knew them all, And so naturally enough, I'm delighted for them. Yeah. Although I'm still wanting to go out on the pitch. To win the game, But I can always remember coming off the pitch because Kenny took me off maybe about 10 minutes before the end or 15 minutes before the end. And which I think in many ways was a lovely gesture. You know what I mean? It was a chance for the crowd, and they gave me an unbelievable good reception, coming off, So
fully
it was very nice of them to do that, But as I said, I'm delighted for United.
It was an amazing atmosphere, wasn't it?
That was just an incredible atmosphere. There's no doubt about it.
So then we're coming into your final playing season, 93-94 at Blackburn. When did you know you were going to retire?
When the manager told me I was retiring.
Would you have just carried on for as long as you possibly could?
Yeah, I think I would have. I think if he said to me, Kevin, I want to give you another contract, I would have said yes.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He actually, Kenny says, listen, Kevin, you've been brilliant. Thanks very much. Himself and Ray Harford was there, but we're going to let you go, and more or less that. And fair play to him, he did offer me a role within the club.
Okay.
As a reserve team manager. And I thought about that for a while. He said, maybe we might use you if you needed to. So I said, well, let me think about it. But at the same time now, I'd met up with Paul Stretford and Jesper Olsen, and we were looking to go down a different route of its proactive sports management. And so that made my decision up to go a different route then as well. But no, I had no hard feelings at all.
No.
But were any clubs, could you have gone to any other clubs though?
Another club came in for me. I think Oldham came in. Graham Sharp, I think, might have been the manager that was mentioned to me. But no, after Blackburn, I decided, I'm 38 now as well, so I just thought I've had a good innings, you know.
And from a management point of view, because you're an organiser, very experienced, captained Ireland at points, kind of credentials for a manager, how come you never wanted to go? Is it because you genuinely always had, from your initial accounts, I wanted to be a business stroke sports? Is that what it was?
Yeah, possibly because so. And you're more in control of your own destiny when you go down your own route, if you're able to do that. I didn't mind going for the Ireland job. I went for the Ireland job actually with at one stage after Jack retired. But Mick McCarthy pipped me to that, you know. Mick got the job back then.
Yeah.
And then, but from a club point of view, I wasn't as keen on going down that particular route.
Yeah.
So you got all your badges and everything.
No, in those days,
you didn't need them.
In those days, you didn't need badges.
Just experience.
You know, it was funny. You know, people went from being a player to a manager. Just
I can see you as a manager though, Kev, because you like always passing down that knowledge, and I could have really seen that as a
So as you go into your next kind of career venture, you did have two testimonials. You had a United one and a one with Ireland. To get them, does the club and country come to you and say, we're going to arrange this for you, or do you have to kind of arrange that yourself? You
have a committee that was kind of formed, and they arrange it on your behalf.
Right.
And that would be the case for both.
Yeah.
For both. United, back in those days, I think if you did 10-year service, you know, and you were not entitled to it, but if you put maybe a committee or application together and they went to the club, they'd probably say yes to it as well. And with Ireland, it was a case of over 50 caps.
Right.
If you had over 50 caps back then, you could have a testimonial. Now, that's all stopped since, you know.
Yeah. Wasn't the Ireland, the one you had with Ireland, like, you got a hell of a turnout, so that must have been...
It was a full house.
Done well with that,
It was a full house at Lansdowne Road, so that was... Yeah, that was really good. The atmosphere, the crowd, the setup, everything about it was just fantastic, you know.
Amazing. Well deserved as well. So then, next career, sports management. You did a bit of punditry though, didn't you? Like
I did. Yeah, I did a lot. I did a lot of country with Sky.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, it was fun. You know, it was with Richard Keys and Andy Gray back then. I know they've disappeared off to different warmer climates. But I did a lot with them because, ironically, when I finished, you know, here was the guy that could say played for Blackburn Rovers or to keep the team, and also Man United. Yeah. You know, so I covered both for them. You know, in many ways. So I did a lot of punditry back then, and then as a result, with Ireland, I did a lot as well with RTE. You know, covering the Ireland games. So back then, I did a fair bit then for the next 5-10 years. You know.
Are you happy to tell us kind of how you got into the sports management business?
Just because I knew Paul Stretford was an agent then at the time. As I said to you, when the Premiership started, that's when agents started developing. And Paul, I knew him as a friend. He looked after, I think, Frank Stapleton, and he was around a lot with the Blackburn Rovers players, and he had a fair few of them as well. Mm-hmm. So I got to know Paul quite well. Yeah. And then he mentioned to me about it, and I said, yeah, that sounds interesting. And he said, I've also talked to Jesper about coming in, and I knew Jesper, of course. Yeah. So we went down that route, and it was very successful. It did a lot of fun. And
so when you said, do you want to get involved, do you mean as part of the business? So putting in to then be part owners or to be agents, and did you have to do qualifications?
Yeah, no, there was no qualifications to be done back then, once again. But we were more looking on, when we came in first with Jesper and myself, more on the hospitality side of things. Right. So we do a lot of hospitality at Old Trafford. Yeah. I can remember we'd started up the business in 94, 95, and 96 we brought over, well, Jesper did, the Danish Association for the Euros '96, and we looked after all their not only their squad but all their supporters and everything. So there's about nearly 2,000 of them that we had to manage and bring over. So that was the whole area of hospitality that was being done, which Jesper had brought on board, and Paul was the one who very much looked after the player side of things.
Right, okay.
He was growing that business, extremely well. You know, I didn't get into that until much later on, where I stayed more in the background as the finance guy, because that was my background a little bit with doing the accountancy and also doing the hospitality at Old Trafford, with Jesper, and doing other, hospitality events as well.
Yeah. And good to see the fans and talk about the memories.
Yeah, there was all of that. We had about 3 or 4 different boxes at Old Trafford back then. Yeah, which we'd manage. And
I'm guessing, so from the enjoyment from that, you never thought there would be no triggers of getting back into the game at all, coaching?
No. Once I went down that route, and especially when we went down, it was quite successful. So you're very much happy with something that you're in control of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The one thing about being a football manager is you're definitely not in control of it. You don't know whether you're going to be still in the job next year or the year after. The one thing you always say you're guaranteed in the job is the sack. And I think that would apply for everybody apart from, I'd say, 2 managers, Wenger and Alex, to be honest with you. They're the only 2 that it was nearly have walked, maybe,
So very successful career after the game, retired now. You did a documentary. How did you find doing that documentary?
I really enjoyed it. I was very happy with what came out of it as well. I've been asked loads of times to do a book, but I've always thought, if you do a book, sometimes you might want to say things you
can be too honest.
Hurt and be honest, and if you don't be honest, you think the book is going to be la 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 la. There's not much in it. But I thought the documentary is more a little about something that could be really nice to pass on. You know what I mean? My grandkids, their kids as well, later on, and go, listen, this was your great granddad or whatever. There's a documentary to look at. Nice, as regards it. So I thought that touch was what drove me down that particular route rather than doing a book.
Right, just a few quick fire ones, Kev. Favourite centre back partner?
Paul, easy.
What do you cherish more, your All-Ireland success or FA Cup medals?
That's a tough one. I've always said first experience is the best.
Really?
It's the All-Ireland.
Okay. Name a player you wouldn't fancy having a scrap with, a teammate or an opponent. Some tough boys out there.
I had one I didn't come off very well with him, Justin Fashion.
Oh, yeah.
Big Flash.
Yeah,
he smacked me on.
Elbows and that, yeah. Best friend in football?
Too many to mention.
Name one football game you would want to relive and why.
Barcelona, quarter-final.
Yeah.
The European Cup.
Everyone says that, yeah. Frank said that, I think.
Best player you played against?
Maradona.
Not bad.
Favourite manager you played under?
Bit of everybody.
Yeah.
Who was your hero growing up? And this doesn't have to be sporting.
Oh, really? Sevi Ballesteros.
Yeah. Nice.
That's a great answer. Best Ireland player of all time?
Liam Brady.
Which individual was the most fun on a night out?
Gordon McQueen.
Most underrated player you played with, in your opinion?
Arthur Elbston.
What's the most, if you have a precious piece of memorabilia, like a medal or a shirt that you own?
Oh, the one I'd have now, which I treasure, because would be in the 92 Wembley, played England, and I swapped a shirt with Robbo.
Did you?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one, yeah.
That's a great one. So all these questions have come from people we asked. So you took a few knocks. Someone's asked, how did you lose that front tooth that time?
That front tooth was lost in the 90 World Cup. And it was loose. And it had to just come out because of the pain I was having with it. So I just pulled it out.
Why?
One of them.
Oh, what a guy. That's all our questions. Thank you. Amazing. But thank you for coming.
Yeah, no, that's it. Really appreciate it.
Okay.